So I want to go back to the
That's
question
true.
about-
It's soy. I'm sorry. It is soy. This dude is super soy. That is true, though. Stephen Miller is a white nationalist. Donald Trump has been trying to appoint white nationalists to high up positions within his cabinet. He's explicitly been retweeting and reposting all of these white nationalist talking points. White nationalist talking points are very common amongst the right, and the reason that the blue suit dude is laughing is because either because he's too stupid to know that he's been conned out by these white nationalists, or because he is a white nationalist and he is the one doing the dog whistle. But like, yeah, this is it's soy, but it's super true.
Quite frankly, you need to subscribe to Rinnycast.
Say, get out of the country. It shouldn't be an entire court case to figure out if someone's illegal. That's a waste of taxpayer dollars. That's a waste of time.
Let me see your papers and get out, buddy. That is fascism.
We'll comment more whenever the actual thing comes up.
Different agency. Can the agree a step forward?
Truth nuke. ERO needs to go.
Well, let's start off with the obvious.
Yeah.
This is
I need to get my bearings.
This is a problem that was invented by the billionaire class and their proxies to shift the attention away from the fact that they have participated in 40 years of neoliberalism, which has decimated the working class. And so they do the oldest trick in the book. They invent a problem and get working class people to be divided by blaming immigrants and the most vulnerable.
This has been a continuous problem for so many years in America, where we blame immigrants for any kind of like current problem that we have because it's just an easy scapegoat. The billionaires don't even pay their fair share in taxes.
I think there's just a safer way to handle a situation. If you want law to do something, there's just a safer way to go about doing it.
Yeah. And I think from my point of view, ICE is a new institution. They didn't exist past 25 years ago. We didn't need them before, and we can do without them now. And I think if your agency and your institution is actively violating the Constitution, violating people's civil rights, killing American citizens and migrants, I don't think you should exist anymore. I think there are other pathways that we can utilize and call upon in order for us to actively keep people safe if that is what the other side is claiming that we need.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Immigrants, undocumented immigrants, are a huge value add for this nation. They commit 30% less crime than native-born citizens. They contribute economically more than any other group. And again, this is an invented issue. And the amount of money and resources that are being deployed, especially at the risk of the Constitution, our liberty, and the rise of fascism. Let's look at Homeland Security broadly and CPB, which encompasses 22 agencies. It's incredibly convoluted, and they're involved with like the human trafficking, drugs, cartels. So actually, the amount of resources that are being pulled from actually the agencies that are doing the deep work to confront cartels and gangs and drugs is going to persecute cooks, line cooks, taco vendors,
farm workers.
Farm workers.
And also, why do we need a $70 billion like budget? We're the 13th most powerful military in the world, ICE is. Do we need that much money and that militant power to fight against immigrants?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had my own pros and cons with fear of with law. So I don't know which one specifically could help with the situation. I just think if the Army and everything goes through training, extensive training, why can't ICE?
Well, we have a criminal justice system already, right? If somebody commits a crime, they already go through a very particular system. That doesn't have to exclude migrants. If somebody does actively commit a crime, call the police and they go to jail, right? If they are prosecuted and they go through their due process. I vehemently am completely opposed to just deporting people just because you don't want them here, just because you can't figure out a proper solution. That's what the criminal justice system is for.
You don't know if they broke the law or anything.
Exactly.
And there is a broader context that we are experiencing the full throes of currently the 5th stage of fascism. And historically, if you study the history and the anatomy of fascism, it is important for fascist regimes to have loyalist paramilitaries. And that is critical to the goals of any fascist regime.
ICE is being funded like a secret army, a secret police force to enact a fascist regime's agenda.
Yes.
Point blank.
Can the disagree a step forward?
We're a little soy on this episode. We're a little soy.
I think two things can be true at once, right? We can talk about billionaires and corporate greed and why they make things harder for the working class. That's all valid. However, that does not take away from the fact that there's illegal immigrants here that don't belong here. They take up housing, they take away resources. You replace ICE with another agency, what exactly is the difference? We still need an agency that takes care of illegal immigrants. And to say, why do they need so much money? Well, the only reason why we need ICE so much now is because we had so many illegal immigrants. I agree with you. It's a made-up problem. It shouldn't be a problem. You came here illegally, so it's ICE's job to get you out. That's just common sense.
And as you said, by the way, you mentioned all these other departments and agencies. HSI is under ICE. So if you're going to abolish ICE, you're going to abolish all the other departments under ICE, like HSI, which handles, like you said, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and money laundering. You abolish.
Yeah, but this is like not meaningfully tackling what anybody who is proposing abolition of ICE is proposing, right? So this. The problem in arguments is that a lot of people give arguments that don't even think about the possible counter solutions, and they just fight over semantics that are not ultimately relevant to like the spirit of what the other person is talking about. So when she says like, oh, well, did you know that if you abolish ICE, you're also abolishing HSI? Well, what if I want to get rid of all of ICE except for HSI? Like, that's still fairly reasonably considered like abolition of ICE. I think it's like a characteristic change in what ICE looks like, or at least like conservatives would absolutely call this abolition of ICE, but we still have HSI, right? So like those kind of rebuttals just do nothing. I don't even know why. It's a comment that is so useless that it might as well not be made.
ICE, and they're doing a lot of good, and you're going to just remove that, thinking it's just going to be deportation, but all other parts of crime, like those others that I mentioned, that would also be abolished, and then what, replaced with the same thing, just like as you said.
That's not accurate.
That's not.
But I thought
None of you actually addressed the actual prompt. The prompt was, if ICE was to, would you get rid of ICE and replace it with something else? None of you laid out any grounds for what you would replace it with, how you would replace it, and how it would be any different from ICE. I heard people talk about billionaires, fascism. I heard people talking about crime rates, which was very inaccurate as well. But none of you actually laid out any groundwork for what it would look like. So I would like to hear that really quick from you guys. What would this new system look like, or what would this new force look like that's going to deport illegal immigrants?
What is your understanding of what the crime rates are, since you brought it up?
The crime rates, every single one of them is violated U.S. Code 8 1325, making them a criminal under federal law.
Oh my
every
God.
single one of them.
Okay, what is, in the eyes of the law, what is that commensurate with?
It is a misdemeanor.
Yes, misdemeanor.
By the way, when people talk about like valuing crime rates, we're not talking about like jaywalking. Technically, if we're like doing has violated any law on the American books, period, then like 90% of people are criminals because we've all jaywalked and we've all gotten like speeding tickets or whatever. But whenever people say like criminals, that's not what we're referring to. We're not referring to people who got caught for speeding, right? Who have like pending traffic violation tickets. What we're referring to is violent crime. Typically, whenever people bring up like crazy crime rates, it's violent crime rates, right? And immigrants of all kinds, including illegal immigrants, are like drastically lower in likelihood to commit violent crimes, or like I'm pretty sure even like felony crimes are dramatically lower. So for you to say like, oh well, they're all criminals because they crossed the border illegally, it's like, well, yeah, but like who cares, right? If that's all you're using to paint somebody as a criminal, then like 90%, probably higher than 90% of Americans are criminals. It's just like it's like useless thing to bring up.
On par with.
Are you saying we shouldn't prosecute misdemeanor
I'm
crimes?
saying, do we need a $75 billion private force that are masked, that are shooting American citizens to prosecute shoplifters?
It's an
You're
extremely
arguing?
oversimplified way of putting how ICE operates, but I would like you guys to address my actual question that I asked you. What does this new force look like when you replace ICE? How are they any different from any other law enforcement agency? Because you talk about killing Americans, but a police officer and NYPD officer literally just shot an American today.
And how many people has ICE shot? 14 since September.
Transgenders have shot more than ICE shot in the
14
last year.
people
What does it have to do with
since September. The first thing is DHS is not going to cease to exist if you get rid of ICE. That is a completely different agency that was created after 9/11 by Bush. The reason that this entire agency exists is because of what happened after 9/11.
ICE
So
functions within DHS, so
if you didn't need it before 9/11, then you can do the same thing now. What you don't need is an agency that is going completely rogue.
I mean, devil's advocate wise, I'm pretty sure. So like, what was the agency before ICE? It was like Interior Removal, something. It was like basically ICE. It was basically the same as ICE. Yeah, it seems like there was real issues with that as well. Like the immigration code is super different, so it's really hard to compare it. But like realistically, the biggest problem with abolition of ICE, if you're literally talking about having no like literally not carrying anything over from ICE, not doing any sort of reform, just getting rid of ICE and building it, from the ground up. A lot of people's proposal is just going to look exactly like ICE. Because like obviously there needs to be some level of interior, deportation force. I would say that just HSI and CBP is fine. ERO, the fact that we're doing like raids to find people who are theoretically deportable, I think is the stupidest thing in the world. I don't know why we would do that. It's just such a waste of money and such a like pointlessly divisive and inflammatory action. But like you saying that DHS is just going to cover it, and that we didn't have DHS prior, so whoever was doing it prior to DHS is going to cover it, even though that agency doesn't exist anymore. It's I don't know. I mean, a lot of this is just slop. A lot of Jubilee content is just going to be slop. So
that is what you don't need. So what you replace it with is what we already have, a criminal justice system. Simply being in this country is not a crime. It is a civil infraction, like he was mentioning. So if your actual argument is, well, they are criminals, that's factually untrue. But if they actually do commit a crime, let's say they are already in this country and they do commit a crime, they get a DUI, they murder somebody, then they go through the criminal justice system, which already exists. So you don't actually have to replace ICE with anything. We already have it.
So you just talked about in the past 4 years, we had 11 million encounters, 2 million got away, 7 million illegal illegals that came into the country. And you say, we don't need ICE to deport any of these illegals. You're not giving an alternative.
I did
So
give-
essentially, do you not
Well,
want
no,
any
no,
border
no.
control at all?
So-
when you have 10 million illegals come in.
This is stupid too. CBP does that. None of this even has to do with ICE. The amount of encounters that you have, like interactions that happen on the border, that's CBP. Nobody's talking about getting rid of CBP. CBP is not ICE. Border Patrol is not ICE. Now, granted, you'd probably have to see some pretty decent reforms to CBP too, because a lot of the really crazy stuff is also CBP officers and not ICE. So like, well, see, that's why you're not into actual politics and have to comment about it on the side. Truth nuke. There's been a lot of problems with Border Patrol too, so there probably have to be some significant reform to Border Patrol as well. Because I'm pretty sure wasn't Renee Good shot by? I don't even know if Renee Good was shot by ICE. I think they were actually shot by Border Patrol agents. No, but like again, these just aren't the same thing.
When housing goes up, first off, apply
no
for
human
groceries.
being is legal, buddy.
So there's no countries now?
What a ridiculous straw man.
Okay, I just want to make this point because you said that coming into the country illegally is a civil offense, not a criminal matter. That's incorrect. Overstaying a visa, something like that, is a civil offense. But if you come into the country illegally, that's a crime.
If you
those are two different things. That's still a crime. It's still a crime.
So if you shoplift one time, are you a criminal for the rest of
You should get prosecuted if you're shoplifting, and that's why California just repealed the vote because at first they supported it, like not enforcing harsh laws on shoplifters. But we saw what happened. What happened with that? Everybody was breaking in, and the cops weren't really doing anything because it was under a certain amount. Because it was a misdemeanor under like what $500, and then California just voted. You know what? Maybe we shouldn't be so easy on shoplifting. If you come into this country illegally, you committed a crime. Let's get that like.
It's a misdemeanor. Yeah.
Why do you guys support a violent agency? They've already shot 2 American citizens, killed them. Why do you want to continue supporting an agency that has killed U.S. citizens? When you guys, I understand your whole reason to support ICE is to protect Americans, but just based off the last few months we've seen, it hasn't protected any Americans. So why continue supporting a violent agency? Why does it need military funding? I'd like to start.
Oh yeah, you go first.
Firstly, I understand this both comes from a place of compassion about where we want to direct it at.
I don't know
in terms
what I
of
wanna do
what
here,
you
really.
said about the American citizens who died. I would just like to point out that they were instigators. They were obstructing justice.
Oh my
they
God.
were preventing the ICE agents from doing what they were supposed to do. And why is someone
actually,
going
they're
to a protest
instigators.
with their children with
Liberal.
guns,
Do you ever think about
XYZ?
that?
Why are you there trying to run over
I think I'm
ICE
just gonna
agents?
restart here,
I think
bro.
that they're doing their jobs and they're being villainized by this protesters on
I
the
don't
other
really
side.
need any
One
of
of
this
those
shit.
American citizens was de-escalating a situation.
I want to say you're talking about law enforcement killing Americans. Like I said earlier, there have been multiple people killed in New York City today by NYPD. Does that mean I'm not going to support the police and NYPD? No, people are committing crimes. They do something that puts them in a situation that will get them killed. I've been pulled over multiple times. I've never had a cop draw their gun on me because I've never given them a reason to. I never reach for my weapon. I never go like this really fast. I never do anything that makes it so they have to draw their weapon. When somebody does something that threatens a police officer or an ICE agent's life, you realize they have less than seconds to make the decision on what to do. I would love you to take a tactical training class and see what it's like to go through that, because these people have to pass it to actually become a police officer or ICE agent. And most people, your average citizens, will fail at like a 90-something% rate.
Do you know who Laura Jadid?
But by the way, I mean, just to be clear, like all of the things you're talking about, like how extensively these people are trained, but all of the things that happened in the Renee Good shooting were against ICE protocol, right? Like that dude absolutely fucking raped his manual guide in terms of what he was supposed to be doing, because none of this was something that's allowed or is understood to be allowed. Like he just broke the fuck out of his training manual. So I mean, like. No, like the idea that these ICE agents are like super highly trained, they only had like 5 seconds to react, is just like more or less not true. This dude walked in front of the car, stopped, he watched the car back up. It's not like you need like 5 minutes to determine whether or not you can step out of the way of the car. He had ample time to react. Anything else is bullshit. It's just infantilizing the police, which is ridiculous considering what the police fucking are, right? They're like an organization that's allowed to use lethal force on the people. We should probably not treat them like they're fucking retard infants. Yeah.
is?
Off the top of my head, no.
Laura Jadid is a journalist who was able to get into the ICE program within 6 minutes of an interview. If just one simple background check, they would have seen that she was a reporter, somebody who is very much against ICE, very much against, like, just overall, somebody you wouldn't want in their agency, and they let her in. It is so easy to become an ICE agent and to just be handed a gun and free range to hurt people. So again, why do we want to continue to support violence?
Can I add a point to that that you can respond to?
Nice,
you mentioned training. I agree, more training. Is that what's happening? No. Ryan Schwank testified in front of Congress.
Schwank.
He's a whistleblower. He was a counsel and a trainer.
This is true.
And they
It's
wanted him
just
to lie
funny name.
that they cut 240 hours of training for ICE agents. Trainings on constitutionality, what is overreach, weapons training, really important things.
Add this in. I have no problem with extra training. I actually think they should be trained more.
They wanted him to lie about it.
People are always going to have ulterior motives. There's always going to be bad apples in a bunch. That's not surprising to me. This is the American
It's not a bad
government.
apple.
But it's the entire agency.
Yeah, but calling the entire agency a big group of bad apples is the most low IQ thing I've ever heard. That's a lack of logic and critical thinking skills.
But
I
it's
think the
not,
entire
because
agency is bad.
because we're literally talking about an ICE whistleblower who testified under oath
That they need more
that they
training, yes, and they tried to silence
No, that they
they
cut
actively
training.
cut the training in half, and it included use of force. So if we're going to talk about how we need more training, they had more training, and this specific Trump administration told them to cut it in half.
Yes, do you understand why?
I do.
I think we get it.
Well, I think as Stephen Miller is asking for a quota of 3,000 arrests a day, and
OSHA of 10.
They needed more people.
I guess you'll have to reconcile that with your faith.
My faith accepts borders. They actually promote them.
Your faith says nothing about borders. We can talk about that later. And in this case, we talked about training, but this is a policy decision because they're essentially trying to pump up their numbers. Does that make sense?
I agree,
3,000 a
they are
day.
trying to pump up
And if
numbers.
you're,
They're
and
actually
here's the
lying
thing, like, what is the percentage of actual? Do you think that the problem is that undocumented people are
wizard.
dangerous criminals? Do you think that's the?
No, I think they shouldn't be here. I think if I went to Pakistan, they would kill me. If I went to North Korea, they would torture me and kill me. If I went to certain countries, most of
You don't
them
think you can go to
What is it?
Pakistan?
without a visa and enter illegally, no. they would
What,
kill
what
you,
is it with
actually.
these conservatives where it's like we're getting all of our border policy and all of our like potential policy that we want the US to live by from fucking Pakistan and North Korea? Like, I don't want to be like those countries. I don't know why you're taking policy from these like fucking shithole country fucking dictatorships, bro. Why are we taking policy aims from them? I don't want to be North Korea, bro. Say like, oh, well, they wouldn't do this in North Korea. Good. I would almost prefer that there's no overlap between the policy that I want and what North Korea does, bro.
They've done it to
No,
multiple people.
they have not.
Yeah, so 80% of countries have some form of border control and 95 have some restriction on immigration. But when we do it here, somehow it's a big problem because we highlight the few things that bring up an emotionally charged argument instead of just looking at the logic and facts behind it. If you look, 65% of the deportations so far are all by criminals. 15% are violent, 20 to 40% are people with DUIs, drug and fraud crimes, and then the last one is illegal reentry, which is a felony. And back to my other just simple questions. I didn't get a yes or no. Is a misdemeanor a crime? That's all I want to know. It's a simple yes or no.
I mean, technically, we're not debating whether or not a misdemeanor is a crime. We're talking about, do we have a $75 billion military force that is deployed against American citizens and against an entire population to prosecute what is essentially a misdemeanor?
good
That is the
reason.
frame of the conversation, not whether or not a misdemeanor is a crime.
Did you have a problem when Obama deported 6 million?
Yes.
And Bill Clinton deported
Yes.
1
Oh my
million?
He called him the
God.
reporter-in-chief, buddy.
So
Literally.
you're not pro-Obama?
Personally, I have an enormous amount of critique for President Obama. Absolutely.
That's a good
I don't want to get into it, but I mean, he expanded the military police state executive actions. He
Which,
created a
by the
failed
way,
state in
this
Libya.
was you don't need to bite that bullet. Like, Obama was not ideal, right? Obama, probably was a little harsh with some immigrant communities. He was probably a little not sympathetic to like the kids in cages stuff. I'm pretty sure was a pretty real problem under Obama. So that's not ideal. But this idea that you need to condemn Obama because of how he pursued the deportations is just a self-report for being a fucking idiot who doesn't know how the deportations worked under Obama. Because the deportations under Obama were fully legal. They were providing people with their due process rights, and they were just using the expedited removal, right? It's turnaways compared to interior removals. Interior removals are uniquely bad, right? Because you need to let the police force come into your interior to a pretty unprecedented level, whereas when you're doing turnarounds, you're just turning people around, right? You don't even really need to detain them all that much. You just kind of turn them around. So like comparing, and conservatives always do this in bad faith, because always notice that conservatives were never like praising Barack Obama for how hard he was being on the border or whatever, or how harsh he was being on the border. These comparisons are being done in bad faith. They know that it's not the same thing because they don't support Barack Obama on the border.
I mean, but the thing is, like, Trump never matched Obama's deportation numbers, which
sad.
it goes back to the problem that this was never an issue. Donald Trump capitalized on white supremacy for political power, because the fact is,
This is true.
Obama was the
the way, but
deporter-in-chief.
it's
It's
true.
not like this wasn't a thing that was being addressed. It was gross overreaches by President Obama. So you have to pick a lane. You can bring up Obama and deportation.
For white people, let me ask you that. What has Trump done to help white people specifically? If he's pro-white supremacy and he's been running on white supremacy.
What does that
I don't think he's done anything.
I'm
I think
impressed with what you just said.
I just want to make one point. So ICE is not out here killing American citizens. American citizens are getting brainwashed by the
They're
left
not?
that, oh, these aren't even law enforcement officers. You guys can go and impede their investigation, get in their way, try to hit them with the car, try to wrestle when you know you have a gun. If I know I have a gun and I'm around a law enforcement officer, I'm acting on my best behavior, first of all.
Sounds like
And
they
my
are
final point
killing
is,
you.
you guys keep
US
saying, oh,
citizens.
well,
You just
they don't
think
have
it's
training, they don't
base,
have
bro.
training. You guys realize we have a lot of illegal immigrants here thanks to Biden? So we would not need so many
No, I
ICE
didn't
officers
realize.
to
Thank
round
you
them up
that.
in the next 4 years if
I didn't
Biden
realize
didn't let
that.
so
Thank
many
you.
in the first place. So yeah, there might they might let some slip through the cracks and be like, let's cut the training because we need mass deportations. We have so many illegals here. That's why the ICE officers probably aren't getting the proper training, and maybe they should. Maybe they still should. But at the end of the day, look at what Trump was left with. How do you expect if we do everything perfect and we have so much training, we're never gonna have mass deportations. We're never gonna get all these people out.
Did you know that?
Like, do you
under
understand
Title
how
42
fucking insane you sound when you say that? Like, oh, if we train our ICE officers, we're never going to get deportations done. Maybe deportations suck ass then, bro. If you can't get deportations done because you need to go through the pesky process of training ICE officers to not shoot people in the face. Like, Jesus Christ. Maybe mass deportations aren't the way for America to go then, big dog. Jesus.
Trump's numbers actually were 1% lower than Biden's removals. So to say that Biden was just letting people in is categorically false. I think they expelled something like 4 to 4.6 million people. And also, it's not because of Biden. It's because of a massive crisis that was happening in Central and South America, largely being perpetrated by U.S. oil sanctions in Venezuela, which created a crisis. Who did that? Donald Trump in 2017 through the oil sanctions, which dropped Venezuela's economy 75% of their GDP, causing a massive crisis. Okay. Also, what happened in 2020? What? COVID. So it's not like Biden did nothing. Biden had very high numbers. And I'm not defending those numbers, actually. I'm not on Biden's side about it. I'm just rejecting your claim. Plus, those numbers are inflated because of Title 42. There were multiple crossings. So those numbers actually, it wasn't 11 million people.
11 million encounters, 6 to 7 million crossings, 2 million gotaways.
True, but it was multiple.
There was no legislation change.
I think only 2 million gotaways over the span of 4 years,
So
just to be clear.
Simply him just being in office and enforcing the border dropped it down 95%. So to say that Biden had
enforcing
no
the border,
the numbers were already ramping up under Trump. The last 2 years of Trump, it was going from 300,000 to 900,000. So the problem was already escalating.
I think most of us can agree, and most Americans agree, that the media is not honest. So why do you think when they're talking about the violence in the streets and all this anti-ICE rhetoric, why do you think it's honest? We didn't get this same rhetoric when Obama was deporting 6 million or when Bill Clinton was deporting 11 million, even though very similar things were happening. ICE was still being rough with immigrants. ICE was still going into people's homes. They weren't getting the due process, as you say. Due process with an illegal immigrant should be, let me see your papers. Oh, you don't have them? They don't exist? Okay, get out of the country. It shouldn't be an entire court case to figure out if someone's illegal. That's a waste of taxpayer dollars. That's a waste of time. To act like all of this is ICE just being extremely violent and not the media playing it up to try and stir drama within the country and stir drama against Donald Trump,
like
who's been their
this
number one
idea
political
that,
enemy for the last...
you expect us to give due process to these people? Well, then we're never going to get mass deportations. Again, if that's your argument, bro, you should just drop the mass deportations bullshit because it's not smart. It's not good for the country. Obviously, we need to, like, these people will literally on camera admit that we need to curtail a lot of our civil liberties in order to make them even feasible to think about. And they'll just grant that. They'll say like, oh, it's absurd, the idea that you think you're going to keep all of your civil liberties if we want mass deportations. We're never going to get them done if you get your due process rights. Like, get the fuck out of here, you fucking loser.
8-10 years since he's been in politics is just a ridiculous thought.
Let me see your papers and get out, buddy. That is fascism.
ICE agents are
It's not fascism, but
for doing their
it's
jobs.
cringe, though.
I think this a lot has to do with what you were saying about the way media portrays them. And I think it's feeding the flame of what the other side believes and they're protesting. And I actually want to say, funnily enough, that these protesters, they're creating barricades, hence borders in their streets to see if ICE agents are coming through their streets and vetting them. So I thought that was very interesting that they're doing that in that time.
This girl's
in
a
terms
retard.
of they're being like vilified, well, they are, especially
they're
when you compare,
making
as Jason said,
liberals
with
making
how they were during the Obama
borders?
administration, the Clinton administration. They're not portrayed nearly the same. So I think that is exactly the point.
And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like the media and the left, especially on social media, they encourage you to get in the way of their investigations. They encourage you to get involved. Even with George Floyd, you notice they were recording, they were cursing out the officer, but nobody got involved because they know you don't do that with police. You don't physically get involved. For some reason, they have it in their heads that you're allowed to physically get involved into these investigations or like these arrests. They have it in their head that ICE is not law enforcement officers. Like I've seen so many people say this. They think in their head that ICE is not law enforcement officers, so they don't respect their authority. You can protest all you want, but you cannot physically get in the way of a law enforcement operation. You just can't. And why are we vilifying ICE when they're just doing their jobs? They're doing what you're supposed to do. Any other country, it would be the same exact thing. What is your problem with ICE if you're a citizen? They mind their business. They don't mess with American citizens unless you're not getting in the way.
I'm glad you brought up George Floyd, because I was literally going to say a very similar thing. I was going to say it's the same way that the defund the police or the all cops are bastards campaigns went, where they tried to vilify every cop. And I've met many ICE officers the same way I've met many police, and they're all very friendly people. They're all family people for the most part. And to vilify an entire group is the exact thing that they try and say we're doing. They try and say we just look at brown people and say get the f out of our country or something along the lines of that. When realistically, it's we do not want the people who are not legally entitled to be here to be here.
Yeah, and it's also sad because it's been 1,000% increase on assault on ICE officers. It's been over 230 assaults on ICE officers. That includes arson, shootings, and then physical altercations, and 180 vehicle assaults. So they're out there assaulting ICE officers, and they have to meet the force that they're given by these people to protect themselves. And at the end of the day, it's a simple logical argument. You think any person is going to care about a random person's life more than their own if they're threatening them? It's just plain and simple.
And one more point, I know a lot of people on the left get mad that ICE officers get to walk around in face masks. They did not need face masks up until recently when the left basically declared war on law enforcement officers. So the reason why they wear face masks is because they're getting doxxed, they're getting harassed just for doing their jobs.
I actually think the same thing that happened with the body cams with the police is going to happen
Oh my
here.
God, they're getting
when they rolled out
doxxed.
every
Jesus
cop has to have a
Christ.
body cam after George Floyd and after the black riots of 2020 or 2021, whatever it was, the media was telling us, oh, you're going to see all these cops killing unarmed black people. And what did we see? We saw a lot of black people and a lot of criminals who were just going at these cops, armed, trying to harass, injure, etc., whatever. I think we're going to see a similar thing. They're saying they're going to
Fuck my Chungus life. Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay, wait, hold on. We're gonna do some networking, guys. Maybe we're gonna see if we can talk to one of these dudes.
to start rolling out body cams on ICE agents. And what we're going to see is we're going to see these ICE agents driving and their car gets rammed. We're going to see people screaming some of the most vile and disgusting things in their faces and doing things to attempt to dox them. That's what we're going to end up seeing. And sure, is there going to be a bad apple among the bunch? I don't doubt it. I mean, in police, in schools, in every category, there's going to be bad apples, but that's the one, they're going to find that bad apple and they're going to use that to try and say, oh, the entire bunch is bad. It's the equivalent to like if I take one black guy who's committed 20 crimes and say all black people are always going to commit 20 crimes. It's just a ridiculous thing, and I think it's pretty funny that that's how they paint it.
May I address your statement? You said about minding your business.
Yes.
During BLM, minding my business, walking to my car, and I was gunned down by the police. So your statement about just minding your business will not get you in
were
trouble.
gunned
I don't
down?
remember exactly what you said,
Sorry.
but I was gunned down minding my business.
That's why I said I
Were you gunned
understand why
down?
people have more of a disdain or distrust for police than they do for ICE. Because that was a cop, that wasn't ICE, right?
Well, that was, I guess, a bunch of FBI people or whatever
But it
during
wasn't
BLM.
ICE.
It wasn't specifically ICE,
Yeah,
but
so
ICE
that's
is
what
still
I'm
the law
saying.
for you guys,
That's what
right?
I'm saying. It's easy for me to support ICE because I feel like cops are more likely to do stuff like that, but ICE is strictly for immigrants.
Yes.
So
but
that's
the-
what I'm saying. I understand why there's
You
more of a
think
distrust
so?
for like local police than there is.
They're not gonna hurt me. They're not gonna hurt me though. They're just there for the immigrants. I'm not an immigrant, right? ICE surely hasn't done anything to like a U.S. citizen yet, right? That's not something ICE would do.
ICE because ICE just goes after immigrants.
Okay, but the man who was minding his business, I believe he was a nurse or a doctor, I'm not 100% sure, he was de-escalating a situation and executed.
He put his hands on an ICE officer. The minute you put your hands on a law enforcement officer, I don't care what you're trying to do, and you have a gun, you basically have a death wish. That's just how I was raised. You don't put your hands on law enforcement officers. You don't get into scuffles when you know you have a gun on
So it
you.
was okay to be executed.
They thought that he had a gun. They thought that he was trying to shoot him.
He was on his knees on the ground.
How? Okay, but I'm saying it's so easy in hindsight.
I
to
could
be
walk
like,
around with a gun.
I'm saying yes, exactly. But
understand
if you
what
know you have a gun, do not try to get involved in a scuffle. The woman, the ICE officer pushed. Maybe he shouldn't push her like that. Whatever. But she was fine. He did not have to physically get involved because look, now he's dead and the woman's fine.
Okay.
I'm saying though, the thing is, if you know you have a gun, you need to act accordingly. Don't be getting in scuffles. Don't resist arrest because look what happened.
That's one of the first things you're taught when you get a gun. And beyond that, do you know what actually happened? He was carrying a SIG PX320, which is known to misfire, which is slightly his fault, but it's more SIG's fault. Nobody should carry that gun. Anybody who does just lacks brain cells.
So I guess none of us are aware of what our
to
Constitution.
use your words,
states
please don't
are.
interrupt us.
I wasn't interrupting you. You
was
literally just
terrified.
finished. And you've been interrupting all of us,
The woman
by the
brain's
way.
hilarious.
No,
It's fine. Go, sweetheart.
No,
Jesus
don't call me
Christ.
sweetheart.
Okay, that was inappropriate. Saying woman brain was inappropriate. But to address the problem, it reminds me of 1994 when they said the final commandment was to get them
Fucking
to
loser, bro.
disregard what they see with their own eyes. Alex Preddy, who was an ICU nurse, was helping a woman who was body slammed by ICE. He was attending to her.
Does this dude
then
have
he got
any
bear sprayed,
open
and then he
call
got executed.
thing?
He was shot in the back of the head. The weapon he was carrying, which he was legally allowed to carry, and that gun was removed, which the officers could see. He was down, and his back was turned, and they executed him, and everybody saw it. So
One key part that I mentioned, which is when the gun was removed, it was a SIG PX320. It misfired, and that's why he was shot.
There's no evidence that that's the case. There's no evidence that the gun misfired from Preddy. At least I'm 90% sure. Even if that was the case, if you have all of his limbs restrained, why do you need to shoot him? Like, no matter what, there's like 4 ICE agents or like 6 ICE agents around Preddy. All of them have all of Preddy's limbs restrained. The idea that his gun misfires, so you need to load his fucking back full of lead, like, this is just not the case. It's laughable.
It shot because the gun he was carrying misfired.
By whom?
But they had the gun.
By the SIG weapon. Do you know what a
The
misfire
SIG weapon
is?
fired itself?
Yes, that's what a misfire is.
In whose hands?
In the ICE officer's hands.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
after they took it off him, it misfired. He had a phone in his
he was
hands,
unarmed.
and they shot him. Yes, you also have to understand the tactical reality changes moment to moment in a situation like this. When you have a situation like that, you have moments to decide, less than a second to really decide what to do. They saw a thing in his hand. It was his phone. They took his weapon off him, or one of them did. Not everyone saw it. The gun misfired, and they executed him right then and there. And to say that it is all the ICE agent's fault is absolutely ridiculous. You can blame SIG. You could put a little bit of the blame on him for carrying a SIG PX320, and you could put a lot of the blame on him for getting involved physically, violently with a law enforcement officer while carrying a weapon, which is the number one thing you learn not to do when you get a weapons permit.
I guess Kyle Rittenhouse didn't learn that, but he was not.
Kyle
he didn't-
Rittenhouse put his hands up
He
when the
didn't.
police were
He
there.
didn't put his hands on an officer. He was attending to the woman who was on the ground. You can see it. It's on the video.
You could also see him push the officer. Did you miss that part, or did you see that?
I'm just saying, like you earlier talked about like the news. I saw it on someone else's phone camera, which is not on the news. However, it doesn't matter if he was carrying the gun, came out the street, whatever. He was de-escalating a situation. They had him on the ground. They shot him. Maybe they should have took a step back and be like, okay, I misfired the gun, not the man on the ground who was basically surrendering.
Well, the reason they empty the magazine is because you're taught to shoot until a threat is neutralized. You're not taught to put one bullet and then check and see.
I mean, we have Noam v. Vasquez, which allows racial profiling. You guys say you can mind your own business walking down the street, but ICE agents are authorized to arrest people on the premise of being brown.
Arrest or question?
People have been arrested, and they're American citizens.
But what you just said is that there's a law that allows them to arrest them for being brown.
The Supreme Court allows ICE to arrest people on the premise of looking like an immigrant. And that is targeted, believe it or not, towards brown people.
I'm sorry, that's just false.
That is not false.
Is that what they ruled? That if you look around, like, what was the actual ruling that you're referring to?
It is where you can arrest people or question them around areas where a lot of undocumented immigrants hang out.
Like around the border?
So you can
Not around the border. There is construction working, or any kind of what we'll deem like as like low skill jobs. It's you can question somebody.
Oh shit. Sorry, I'm super missing. Wait, hold on. I'm not reading. Okay, hold on. Get yourself a McChicken. Thank you, War. Appreciate it. My stream deck's not on. Yellow diamonds look like PP. Okay, thank you for the $5. I greatly appreciate it. He said that and low-key I'm too mean. You've got much more patience than me. Half the shit they say would make me okay. Your opinion doesn't matter anymore, so I'm just gonna keep talking. Hey, I try my best, but I appreciate you watching. I hope that it's a little bit cathartic.
Just based off them speaking Spanish, and you can also arrest somebody entirely based off like speaking in English with an accent. This is specifically targeting people of color. It's targeting people of color. This Vasquez v. Noam is
Fuck, am I gonna have
the
to
Supreme Court's
verify
way
my
of
I might
saying
have
the
to
twice
just
word out
verify
loud.
my Twitter.
Yeah, if you are a person of color in this country, you can be detained.
So two things. Are majority of illegal immigrants, are they
Yeah,
person
we're
of
locked
color?
in.
A majority?
Yeah. Would you say over 50%?
What does that have to do with equal protection?
I said majority of them are of a different skin color, so it would make sense that majority of those people are questioned if you want to deport the majority of people. And when you said U.S. citizens were detained, it's 170 to 200 as of right now. 130 of them actually assaulted officer. And have 300,000 people have been deported. That's a 99.9% accuracy rate. And somehow that's bad. I mean, I'd take that any day of the week.
Wait. I'm sorry. What?
The majority of people. And when you said U.S. citizens were detained, it's 170 to 200 as of right now. 130 of them actually assaulted officer. And have 300,000 people have been deported. That's a 99.9%. 170 to 200 as of right now. 130 of them actually assaulted officer. And have 300,000 people have been deported. That's a 99.9% accuracy rate.
99.9% accuracy rate of the people that got deported, not of the people that got detained. Oh my god, bro. Oh my Jesus. Holy shit. Like, I don't know if you just say like a billion different numbers, you hope people just don't listen to what you said. Like a 99.9% accuracy rate of deportations that weren't citizens. Deportation should be around, should be pretty damn near 100%. You ever seen somebody argue your point badly, you get mad? True. 99.9% deportation rate is honestly a fairly low rate in terms of deportations. You should be deporting next to anybody who is not deportable, actually deporting them. But I'd have to, let me relook at the number here. I'm pretty sure that the detention to deportation rate, like how many people has ICE detained in 2025? It was a 14-to-1 deportation per release. Jesus. So one person was released for every 14 people. And detentions rose by 75%. So, I mean, these numbers are not speaking very well to the detention to deportation ratio.
And somehow that's bad. I mean, I'd take that any day of the week.
You would take an American citizen being risked for deportation just for the...
Just show your papers and they'll let you go. Wait, but do you expect people to walk around, like everyday citizens, do you expect everyone to walk around with papers?
I expect them to have them available in some manner. If you're not walking around with it, you should have a picture of it. Most likely, yes.
Yeah, that sounds like Germany.
That's fucking insane. You expect me to have a picture of my birth certificate that I can just whip out and show to ICE officers so I don't get detained? You're fucking insane. What? Jesus Christ, you expect me to either have my birth certificate or have a picture of it on my phone that I can show to ICE officers if I get questioned? Jesus Christ, this is America, big dog. Holy.
Do I have my license? Yes, I do.
Okay, your license. But you're saying visas.
Which has a gold star on it, which means you have a social security number. But
Yeah, gold star like the Jews. in Germany.
So unfairly vilified. The
Low-key
reason I
kinda
didn't step
true,
forward
but
is
bad
because we have
point.
so much documentation proving that, again, they are not being trained properly. Therefore, there are
Also, by the way, just for, for the sake of it, we also have a lot of reports of ICE agents literally, trying to detain somebody, them telling them that they have papers, and then just saying, no, you don't, you're illegal, and then detaining them anyway, right? So like this idea that, all you need is your papers, right? It's laughably wrong.
violating people.
They actually had to get enjoined for the warrantless arrest thing because they were arresting people to put into deportation proceedings based off of reasonable suspicion of illegal presence instead of probable cause, to believe it. So like reasonable suspicion would be like somebody's Mexican, somebody's speaking language, somebody is hanging around a bunch of people who don't have like legal status or are suspected to not have legal status, and probable cause is like they didn't show me their papers, right? But they were arresting people without probable cause. They were arresting people on reasonable suspicion, aka asking for papers and not caring about the answer or not even asking for papers. So this idea that ICE officers will like just ask for the papers and you're all good, and like as long as a citizen is carrying around some sort of proof that they have a social security number, then they're all good. It's just not true.
People's civil rights. They're violating the Constitution, the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment. There's no reason to not unfairly vilify them because of that specifically. If you are an American and you are against people being undocumented, make the process easier. But instead, what we have done, or this specific administration has done, is send out enforcement to go out and walk into people's homes without the proper warrant, without a judicial warrant. They have been explicitly told to do that.
Shit,
and we're mentioning IDs. People have had IDs. They have showed them. They have had their papers, specifically American citizens, have showed ID and passports. And they have still been detained for weeks and months at a time without the proper due.
Wait, please bring up the fact that there's a bunch of fucking pending habeas petitions that the ICE needs to release the people for still.
Process of being allowed to have a lawyer to even come and speak to verify their birth certificates and things like that. So even if you had the papers, even if you're an American citizen, even if you are a lawful resident, for
example. Side tangent, you've infected my vocabulary with big dog. That's an insult. I've done that to a lot of people, but
even if you have a visa. For ICE, it does not matter. And we have so much documented evidence of that. I'm in the media, actually.
Same.
And I do agree that
this dude's insane, bro. You got 900 subscribers, bro. You're in media like I'm in media, big dog.
The media has bias, but that doesn't mean that they're dishonest. I think there are definitely certain platforms that have an agenda. I think we talked about Fox News for a second. CNN, I would agree, also has an agenda, but that doesn't mean that all of the evidence that they're putting out, all of the video footage, all of the whistleblower testimony, all of the migrant and U.S. citizen testimony of being held in detention centers for as long as they have been are automatically dishonest. That's just not how it works. If we want to truly have a process for documentation, let's do that. I'm for that. But what we can't sit here and do is be intellectually dishonest and say, well, we shouldn't vilify them because they've shot 14 people. Most of those people have been American citizens. That's just not true.
Immigration enforcement should focus only on violent criminals. Can the Greer step forward?
Damn, they don't even think they should focus on that.
Is a premise. It's something that W.E.B. Du Bois called the psychological wage of whiteness. And this entire issue,
it's so soy, bro.
the mass detention camps, which are basically concentration camps, all of that is predicated on taking advantage of the disenfranchisement and the disillusionment that white people feel because they are not. They feel that they're not being given the right that they owe, and they're framing, like our president and our leaders are constantly framing immigrants as violent. They're constantly framing them as rapists. Trump has talked about poisoning our blood. And this is white supremacy. I agree. If you are a violent criminal, if you are trafficking, if you are harming children, absolutely we should be using the resources that we have to target those people, to arrest them, to have them go through due process, and absolutely to deport them. But I do not believe that the president needs a private military force to forward his political agenda. If we look at the actual numbers, I think something like 74.3% have no criminal history whatsoever. If we're looking at actual those who are being arrested, detained, and deported.
Depends on how you're framing the number. We got a lesson on that from Deaf Noodles yesterday.
With violent histories, violent crimes, I think something like, it's like 5% according to the Cato Institute. But if you're really looking at, the rhetoric says they're criminals, they're gang members, they're drug dealers, but 0.3% is Tren de Agua, 0.4% is MS-13. Yes, if these people are committing crimes and engaging in illicit activity, absolutely go for them. But Social Security would be defunct right now if the undocumented immigrants, who are mostly salt of the earth, honest people, who are committing crimes that drastically who are a value add to society, who pay into the way more into the system than they take out, and actually are the #1 source of creating new wealth in this country, creating new jobs, especially when it comes to second generation Americans. And we are engaging in a white supremacist campaign for the political interests of
Bro, it's the fucking soapbox. it's the soapbox bullshit like this that makes people not give a fuck about the left, right? Like, what? There's like, if this was like a professor saying this, then I'd be a lot more or a lot less harsh on it, just because like these are very loaded terms, and I trust that like scholars and academics would be able to use these terms with the weight that comes with it. But I know that this guy is just saying this because he has to say it because he's a liberal or like a leftist, so he just has to super appeal to stuff like that. It's just so soy, bro. This is what, like, whenever people say like this is why Trump won, this is low-key why Trump won, bro. You are being so fucking condescending. It's like grossly condescending. Bro. But low-key based. The problem here, I actually don't know how I feel about this prompt, and I know why the three liberals stood back here. It's because, like, well, why should we deport them? Why shouldn't we just put them in prison? Why not just let them go through the criminal justice system? Which I think is a very good point. The only real pushback that you get is that, like, well, it just costs more to put somebody in prison than to deport them. And deportations also probably raise recidivism too, because if you're just deporting them and then you can't guarantee that the place that you're deporting them to is going to keep them in prison, they're just going to come back, right? So it's a super complicated question. I can see why people like, there's something to say. I would probably step forward and just say, like, yeah, I don't agree with mass deportations. I think this kind of immigration enforcement is just like pointless. But if you were to do it, I would prefer you focus on people with violent criminal histories in their home countries rather than, you know, just doing it on the grounds of them being near a Home Depot, you know, like, so this is like slightly preferable. It's not good. Dude read one poli-sci book. Yeah, well, no, it's like, bro had like one socialist girlfriend.
You know, especially this regime, and I think that I think it's an invented problem. I think these populations contribute an enormous amount to our society, and so I reject the entire frame of the conversation beyond that.
Well, as somebody who doesn't believe that ICE as an entity should exist, I don't think that they need to go after violent criminals and just target them, because again, we have a criminal justice system that does that. If you want specific things around documentation, then we already have agencies for that too. If somebody wants to get a visa, if somebody wants to become a legal or permanent resident, or if somebody wants to become a citizen. So I don't think that, you know, this targeting of specifically violent criminals, I think it's a moot point.
Can I just say, I don't really think it matters. If you come into this country illegally, you do not have to commit like an extra crime, like a bonus crime, in order to be deported. The first thing you did when you came into the country was break a law. We do not have to wait for you to break 2 laws to then deport you. I feel like that doesn't make any sense. And to talk about your point, what agency is going to be responsible for deporting?
Well, the question is that, okay, let's say that you have a line of people that you can enforce the laws with, right? It's like, okay, in prosecution, do you think we should focus on murderers or do you think we should focus on thieves? You're like, well, they all committed a crime, so why would we weigh it? It's like, well, there needs to be some sort of sequence by which we search people out, right? You should probably search the worst ones out because the non-worst ones are not going to be doing as much damage, right? So you want to get the violent criminals off the streets before you get the random people who just theoretically have a pending deportation order off the street. That would be the thing, saying like, oh, well, they already broke a law. Well, wouldn't you rather get the people who broke 2 laws first and then like get the people who broke 5 laws before them? But I argue they don't want justice for victims and make them choose between hating brown people and Reagan Riley. Kind of. I mean, like, there's good rhetoric there. The problem is that you're just granting too much. Like, when you're engaging in this conversation, you're kind of granting that mass deportations are a good aim, but you just disagree with the pattern by which they're achieving it, which I think you're granting too much when you have that. But in order to like actually capitalize on that rhetoric, you basically need to concede that mass deportations are good, which is not good.
Deporting people.
I don't believe we should be deporting
people.
So that's my point. That if you would like to have a deeper conversation about documentation, if you would like to have a deeper conversation about people breaking their visas, for instance, we can have that conversation. There are already agencies that exist for that. I personally don't believe that you need to deport somebody to a different country in order for the laws in this country to be, absolved. Like, there are already ways.
She's speaking really loosely because there's so many people that want to talk at the same time, so I'm not going to hold this super hardcore against her, but her saying I don't believe in deporting people makes me question what she's doing, or like what her position is, because I thought she was like a base Reagan amnesty liberal, but now I'm kind of thinking that she may be like a not based open borders leftist. But I mean, still more based than these like fucking losers over here, but we'll
Ways
see.
of doing that.
Okay,
I don't believe in deportation.
Okay, but a lot of times,
I
let's
don't
say
believe in
people commit crimes
deportation,
and then they
that's
get a slap on the
sketchy.
wrist. You're saying that, like, let's say if somebody committed like a sex crime against a child and they got 5 years. You're saying after those 5 years, that like person that never was here legally, you're saying that he should still stay in the country and he shouldn't be deported after he served his sentence.
If they
He gets he's not going to get 5 years for raping a kid.
committed a crime, they go through the criminal justice system. If you don't like that they only got 5 years, change the law. There are
True.
plenty of advocacy organizations that do that. But you can't just say, well, they committed a crime, so let's ship them off to a different country to commit more crime. Is that your premise?
No. I think that if you're a legal immigrant, you commit a crime, you should serve time in American prison so we know the victim got justice. And then once you're done with your sentence, you don't get to just enjoy America. You go back to where we came from because you never belonged here and you committed a crime and harmed an American.
So then it's not about crime and punishment for you. For
It is.
you, but it's not.
It is.
Because they already went through the criminal
They
justice
already
system.
served
But for
their
you,
time,
it's not
yeah.
enough time.
But they were illegal, so they didn't deal with being
So
that.
again,
They never got deported
So
for that.
who
So again,
cares?
there are already agencies that go through that process of documentation.
being illegal?
For documentation.
Okay, who is going to send them back? No, you're saying that we shouldn't send anybody back.
No.
That's crazy. So-
Deportation is a false premise. If
No, it's not.
if you would like to go and visit Paris tomorrow and you spend a week in Paris and you say, you know what, I really like Paris. I want to see if there's any jobs here. You look for jobs and then you decide, you know what, yeah, I want to apply for that job. You go through the interview process. Then you have to then go through their documentation process, right?
Exactly. I'm going through the process.
You going through that process for you in your mind, that's the legal way of going about it, correct?
Exactly.
That is what people do here. Now, if they break their visas, if they decide not to go through that documentation, then yes, there is an agency that can already go through that process.
Okay, but what happens if I go to Paris without a passport, without any documentation? Like, man, I want some croissants. And you know, I just want to stay here. I don't have any passport. I don't have any visa. What would happen in Paris?
Just real quick though, in other countries, Spain.
You don't want to be Paris. We do not want to be Paris. The United States leads the world in terms of what we want for our policies. I don't know why we're taking advice from fucking countries that nobody wants anything to do with. We don't want to be Paris. We don't want to be, we sure as fuck don't want to be North Korea. So this idea that we're taking these policy aids in terms of how we should treat our immigrants from these other countries, especially considering like, do you want me to like bring up the fact that Canada is a lot less restrictive with their immigration? Because like, fuck, I can't imagine that's going to be very convincing to you.
In Portugal, there is a pathway to citizenship. So you actually can go over, you actually can go through a process, apply, but here, there isn't the same process. There are people who are spending 30 years applying. There isn't a pathway to citizenship. There isn't a pathway to...
There is the same process, it's just not feasible, but I get what he's rocking with.
Through the system, it just doesn't exist. And this is important because so many of the crises that are happening, that are forcing these people to come as refugees, are created by the United States. Like, you know, the decades of dirty wars waged by...
No deportations ever is not it. Well, like, there's something to be said about like, you know, even if these people are criminals, putting them through the criminal justice system, we should have enough faith in our criminal justice system that after somebody served their time, they can come out as a better, you know, human being, as a rehabilitated human being. And that deportation just doesn't seem like the best way because we're just going to be shipping them off to a different country to let them hurt more people, not in jail, right? This person's idea of like, well, let's keep them in jail until they get released and then deport them. Like nobody is even proposing that. That's not a serious idea because of how much fucking money. That'd just be a giant fucking waste of money. So like, but there's obviously certain situations where you want deportations, right? Like for as much shit as I give it, the Alien Enemies Act, like in principle is a good idea, right? If you're at war with somebody engaging in predatory incursion against you, if we're using the real definition of predatory incursion, or if you're like, if you have people that are at war with the United States, it probably makes sense to not allow those people in the country, right? If we have, you know, let's say we're at war with China and we have a giant influx of Chinese immigrants, it probably makes sense to be able to kind of turn around or like expedite the removal of those Chinese immigrants because we're at war with China. There's way too many national security, you know, threats there. Or like if somebody has like previous ties to you know, to terror organizations, and we just discover it even after they're in the interior, well, it makes sense to probably get rid of them because they pose a national security threat. So like there's situations where deportations are certainly necessary, where they're certainly, you know, understandable, where it's probably preferable that we do it. So no deportations ever, I agree, is not it. But I mean, like I said, ERO from ICE, like doing these fucking immigration raids where we just find people on the street and we suspect them to be illegal, so we put them in ICE. It's just fucking retarded. Like it just, there's no point.
or CIA. That most of a good percentage of the drug trade is fueled by Americans' consumption. Again, I talked about the crisis in Venezuela. 100% happened because of U.S. policy. So we have to look at the underlying causes. It's easy to just make those anecdotal points or hypothetical points, but you have to look at the underlying causes.
Can I say real quick?
May I? I think we're getting off topic of ICE or only taking violent offenders. I would hope that they would take everyone who's committing a crime, not just violent offenders, because there's a crime within everything. It's not just
Including the
violent.
crime of crossing the border illegally?
No.
Okay,
And
so
that
you don't want them to
statement's
get all the
false.
criminals. You want them to get all the criminals except the ones who crossed illegally.
I mean, actually applying as a refugee seeking asylum, perfectly legal.
Do you think that
Should ask him if like clearly he doesn't want to deport all the criminals either, because he doesn't want to deport like US citizens, hopefully. Like we obviously pick and choose which violent or which crimes we want to punish with different things. Like if I say like, oh, we should punish the criminals who rape people with this amount of time in prison, and he's like, oh, well, what about people who like sexually assault people but didn't quite rape them? You think that they should be like out on the streets? It's like, well, no, but it's not, we don't treat these things the same way, right? Like you know, let's say that there's a terror threat, right? It probably makes sense to deport them, but he's like, oh, you don't want to deport every criminal? What about the people who came here illegally? It's like, well, no, that crime's not as bad. You know?
It's actually legal. So what
created
you're saying is
and
false.
abused?
That you're shifting goalposts.
No, I'm not, because that's
You
an
are.
extremely abused program, and most of the people, the vast majority of people who use the asylee program cannot prove that they're refugees or seeking asylum from
If that's the case, then deport them afterward. Don't deport them while they're asylees.
real terror.
Okay, but you're moving the goalposts. What you said that they're criminals, but the process of seeking asylum is legal.
And then when they overstay,
Shifting the goalposts.
I just think a lot
True.
of
Trump is deporting asylees, right? If you say like, oh, there's a lot of fraud, oh, there's a lot of overstays, oh, they, you know, exceed, oh, there's a lot of, you know, whatever. None of this has to do with anything. You're deporting people who are seeking asylum. You haven't litigated whether or not it's a fraudulent case. They certainly haven't overstayed if they haven't even been granted their asylum. He's right. That was just a total. I good on that guy for just completely calling out and like shutting down those goalpost shifts.
Immigration rhetoric, it's always trying to take the most extreme, ignoring the data, ignoring the statistics about how much violent crime immigrants commit in this country, which is not a lot. Actually, U.S. citizens are more likely to commit a violent crime than an immigrant. So if you're saying, well, if somebody who is undocumented commits a crime and then goes through the justice system, should they be released back into the country or this country? You should stay here. Yeah, 100%.
So you think we should be? It's a privilege, not a right to be here. Like it's a huge privilege. It's an honor actually to be an American and an American citizen. So you're saying we should bestow upon them a gift after they? You said it was too extreme, but molested a child, went to jail. I could even make it less.
Oh my God, I roll. Oh my God, you think we should bestow upon them a gift? No, bro. I think it just makes more sense. It's better for the country. I'm not viewing it as bestowing them a gift. I'm not saying I want to give them $1 million. Fucking idiot. I'm saying that it's better for the country to give these people amnesty. Oh my God.
Extreme, less.
I mean, it's a straw man. You're
But that's still
making a
the
straw
law.
man.
Like that's not up to
No,
us.
the law
Like,
would be they're deported. Actually,
then-
The law's on
okay,
my
but
side.
if they don't deport them, then they release them back into the country. So then that's not our problem at that point.
And also,
No,
It
it's
is.
just
We have to
the
live with
problem.
them.
You're right.
That's our problem.
Okay, but they
Just
took it
my
upon
children's
themselves
problem.
to release
We
them
have
back
to
into a
live
country.
with
If they wanted to
them.
deport them,
Jesus
they would have.
Christ.
But
But
they
that's what you
didn't.
guys wanted. Normally, when illegals commit crimes, they serve time in American prison and then they get deported. That's normally how it is. The only reason we bring up these extremes is because you guys are saying all deportations are bad, even if they commit crimes, violent crimes. You guys still think that they should be in this
Well,
country? Like, am I tripping?
I think
That's
that-
crazy.
You should. Your problem with the justice system when you're saying, oh, if the worst of the worst happens, somebody does something, if somebody does something horrendous to another human being, but and then you don't feel like they have served the sufficient time in prison, then that's something, like you said earlier, you should be taking up with the courts.
The problem is not the amount of time they serve. The problem is that they could serve 5 years, they could serve 50 years. My point is they were legal when they entered. The first action they ever did when they entered was illegal. They then committed a second crime, a violent crime. We could say rape, we could say murder, we could say burglary, we could say whatever crime you want. They spend the appropriate amount of time in jail for that. I'm not arguing about jail sentences times. I'm talking about when they get out, should they be rewarded with, hey, you should now be granted American citizenship and the
Well, to be clear, all of these people said that they shouldn't be focusing on immigration. I don't know if they conveniently all changed their mind right as soon as it was politically expedient. All of these people said that we shouldn't be focusing on the violent criminals. So I don't know why he's framing it as if they're going to be focusing on the violent criminals and deporting them after they get out of jail. You want to deport everybody, you fucking idiot. Why are you saying that, you know, like, can I flip that same question back on you where it's like, do you think that we should be viewing the same priority between somebody who just got out of jail for like raping and murdering a whole family and somebody who, you know, fucking came here on a visa and overstayed? Do you think we should be viewing them with the same amount of priority in terms of getting them out of the country? Because that's the argument that you're making. So, I mean, you know, be careful who you're soapboxing, big dog.
American taxpayers are now going to have to accept you even though you committed this crime and multiple other crimes, or are we just going to deport that person?
It's
But
been-
Also, American taxpayers are going to have to accept you. They're also going to need to accept the more taxes that they pay as a legal citizen than if they were paying as a fucking illegal immigrant, right? The U.S. taxpayers are going to be benefiting off of these people because they pay more in taxes, right? The only thing that would be actually costing the American taxpayer is the fucking wildly expensive deportations that you want to do with the giant fucking price hikes that you need to fund ICE with in order to be able to do these deportations. That's the only burden on the taxpayer between these two solutions.
Answer how it works.
Instead of arguing about a hypothetical situation that you're inventing, I love that you brought
Oh
up
my
the bigger
God,
picture,
I roll.
because the bigger
don't
picture
like this guy.
is that
Oh
so
my
much
God.
of this is being driven by companies like CoreCivic and the Geo Group, who are massive Trump donors in millions and who are making massive profits.
I
So basically,
roll, bro.
all of the concentration camps that are being rolled out around the country, or we'll call them detention camps, whatever if you want, they're making massive profits. So that is what's driving the policy. Do you understand?
My point here really is, the reason I didn't say much is because you really said it all, that if you came into this country, that's your first crime, you should already go. And you commit another, it's really just adding on top of already what you've done wrong. It doesn't have to be violent. You came in here, it's illegal, it breaks the law. Misdemeanor or not, it breaks it, you should go.
And can I just make one point? You say we don't have a pathway to citizenship. I'm kind of confused because I have a lot of friends that are immigrants that came in here legally and they became citizens because they waited in line. So what do you mean we don't have a pathway to citizenship? There's plenty of illegal immigrants and they're more pro-ICE than most Americans that are born here. So there is a pathway to citizenship. You just have to wait a while.
Yeah, I don't think you know much about the process itself. I know it intimately, and it is massive. People wait decades to do that. It costs roughly $15,000, and most people can't do that. If you're trying to just...
No matter how hard it is, the point is we still have a pathway to citizenship. You might not like it, you might think it's hard, but guess what? When millions of illegal immigrants are coming, that makes it harder for people to even have pathway to citizenship.
If you're living through a crisis, and it's going to take...
Fogging up the immigration courts with all these deportation proceedings is going to make it easier? Is that your opinion? Really?
30 years, the only thing that you can do is do the best you can to take care of your family and get to safety. Not to mention, I'm a little bit older than y'all. I grew up with a very different idea of what America was. This was the place where anybody could come, and these were the people that we wanted. This was the American dream. It is on the Statue of Liberty. Send us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, yearning to be free. I think,
Oh my God, I love
maybe it's
that
just because I'm
quote.
older, but this is a very different country.
Family separation is a
W
necessary
quote.
consequence of immigration enforcement.
Jesus Christ.
I'll start here because I didn't speak much last time, but I think when parents take their young kids and they cross the border, it's the parents' fault. It's not the kids' fault, but that they take them. So when eventually the deportation happens,
Bro, this person's a fucking DEI hire. I swear to God, bro. There's no way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like,
it is a natural
there's two competent people on the right wing side.
consequence of the
let me
decision
see
that
the
these
lineup
parents
on the other
made
side.
Family separation.
I like two of the people on the right side. I like two of the people on the left side. The one just seems quiet. This dude is also a DEI hire, just to be clear. They wanted like one rugged, actual, like masculine man to be on the left wing side. And then I like these two. Bro, these two people are so fucking stupid. Like, I understand that it's tough out in these streets to get like good right wing debaters, but holy God.
Is a necessary consequence of immigration enforcement.
I'll start here because I didn't speak much last time, but I think when parents take their young kids and they cross the border, it's the parents' fault. It's not the kids' fault, but that they take them. So when eventually the deportation happens, it is a natural consequence of the decisions that these parents made for their children. Or if they had a child here and because of the Constitution they are born a citizen, that is again due to the consequences of the parents' decision. And this is a harsh reality, and that is what it is, but it is a natural consequence. And when you start blurring the lines and making exceptions here or there, it makes things difficult, where they think, hey, if I have a child here, if I bring my children here, it'll give me a leeway to stay here, and we can't have that in this justice system.
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving around drunk with your son in the back of your car, you're going to be separated from your family. That's just how the law works. It's if you commit a crime, you are most likely going to be separated from your family because of that. And also, I like the idea that they deport the entire family, or they at least give them the option to deport the families together. So when they do get separated, you could actually put the blame on the illegal immigrant in the family.
And that's kind of what I was going to say. I agree, and then I don't agree with the prompt. Family separation is not really
Like, do you hear yourself, bro? That's fucking nutty. That's crazy.
necessary because they all can be deported together. But here's the thing. A lot of times, the people that are here legally, they want their kid to stay in America, more opportunities, whatever, and then they go back to their country of origin because they don't have a choice. They're choosing to keep their family separated. That's not our fault. That just because you have a child doesn't mean that you and your child get to stay here.
I would really quickly just want to interject. I don't even think the kids should be staying in that instance, even if they're technically American citizens, because I don't view them as that. The 14th Amendment.
What are we doing, bro? He literally is in support. Like, stop fucking pro-clutching about protecting U.S. citizens. This dude is literally saying he wants to deport U.S. citizens. I promise all three of these people are going to stay radio fucking silent.
was created so slaves' children could become citizens, not so any illegal immigrant who wants to come to America and pop a baby out and make their kid a citizen.
This is just based on the Constitution. I think that's like why, like me and her were saying that, you know, for the babies that are born here as citizens.
I think they should repeal that law, and I think they're attempting to now. The Supreme Court's going to be ruling on that in the next few months. But yeah,
they're not trying to repeal the 14th Amendment, you fucking idiot! Oh my god.
I don't think birthright citizenship should be a thing.
I agree,
Dude,
but I feel like that's a conversation for like future kids. I don't think we can take away citizenship now. I feel like
it would be hard to retroactively do it.
We'll have to apply that for kids in the future.
At the end of the day, it's the parents' responsibility. If you come here and you
Do
know
these people's credit though, at
you
least they're pushing back on this fucking crazy person.
there's a chance of deportation. No, every single person that comes here illegal knows this. So if you actually want to stay in this country with the kids that were born here, then you should go and start going through that process to become a citizen. And if you don't do it, that's your fault. You're not actually taking care of your family in the full way you should.
The problem is a lot of the ways that people come in here, it's not accessible to go through the pathway to citizenship. Like if you want to expand the pathway to citizenship, then that's perfect. I love that. I love that idea. That's just not where we're at. It's not feasible to do that. That's the biggest problem. So the idea that we're going to like rip these people away from their families, cost the American taxpayer like a fuck ton of money in order to do these removals in furtherance of what? Right? Like, why not just provide a pathway to citizenship? And then the people who don't apply for that pathway to citizenship, you get them out. And people who are terror threats, you don't accept their application and you get them out. That seems super, super easy. And way more moral and like, you know, like ethically defendable. But
there's a chance of deportation, then you start going through the process as quickly and as fast as possible that you can. Yeah, sometimes it is slow, but a lot of people, they don't even try. I've talked to people that have been in the country 10, 15 years. They haven't even started their path to citizenship. They just don't, because they're just like, oh, I'm just going to keep getting away with it as long as I possibly can. And that actually hurts the people that are actually actively trying to go through the pathways to get their citizenship.
Because pathways to citizenship are incredibly clogged. Like getting visas applied, bro. Like there's, this is anecdotal, of course, but like there's the one fucking boy band around Instagram. It's called Boy Throb. They're trying to get this dude's I don't know if it's an H-1B, but it's some sort of visa like that. They're trying to get his visa approved to come over and be a part of the boy band. And they were like doing a campaign in order to get like 1 million followers, so it would help the chances of his visa being approved, so he could come over and join the boy band. And that saga has been going on for like a year at this point, bro. Like it's impossible to get. And the only reason why that, you know, application is going to be fast tracked, because I assume he's probably going to come over, but the only reason why that application is getting fast tracked is because they're gaining all of this fucking popular support and they're getting like 1 million followers on all of these different platforms, right? Imagine just like a normal person going through the visa application process without like, you know, doing it on the grounds of a publicity stunt to bring this fucking Indian dude over to be a part of our boy band, right? Like this idea that like, oh, just go through the pathway to citizenship. Well, it's not that easy.
I mean, where do we start? I think I don't remember who said it, but something about birthright citizenship, and that confuses me a little bit, because literally anybody who is born in this country has citizenship, right? They don't have to go through a very deep process like migrants do. So if your premise is that we should just take that away, are we taking that away for everybody? And now everybody then has to go through some sort of documentation process. At what age does that documentation process then start? Because you can't just pick and choose, right? You can't just say that you're only going to apply it for the kids of migrants and not to the kids of every citizen.
Yes, because they would be citizens because their parents are citizens. If you're not a citizen of America and you come into America and you have a kid to give your kid citizenship because you think it will give you a better chance at staying, or you think you're doing something better for your child, you are not only putting your child at risk because their parent might now get deported, but it's also abusing a loophole in a law that should not be there in the first place.
It's not a loophole. It's the whole point, bro. They were in the congressional debates. They were saying that this is the point. This is necessarily what's going to happen by extension of the 14th Amendment. And they all acknowledged that and said it was based, right? This wasn't a loophole in the 14th Amendment. This is how the 14th Amendment was written, right? There's a reason why you're not citing the specific language of the 14th Amendment, because it's laughable, the idea that this doesn't grant birthright citizenship to the children of illegal immigrants.
Place. It was made for the creation of slaves' children.
So you're saying citizenship is a loophole now?
I'm saying
like if this was the case, if it was only meant for exclusively naturalization of just slaves' children, or for the naturalization of freed slaves, and that's it, why wouldn't it just say that? Why wouldn't it just say, and we're giving naturalization to all of the slaves that are within the jurisdiction of the United States? Why wouldn't it just say that? Well, it's because clearly it meant something beyond that, right? It meant something beyond just giving naturalization to the slaves.
citizenship, having an anchor baby in this country as an illegal immigrant.
But that implies intent. So what you're assuming is that every migrant who has a baby in this country is automatically just wanting that to go through a loophole.
How about if it's one a citizen parent and a non-citizen parent having a baby? Would that baby, in your opinion of birthright citizenship, should
No, I don't think it should be rewarded citizenship.
even if at least one parent?
I actually think you should charge the husband for aiding and abetting a crime for protecting an illegal immigrant.
Jesus
I agree and disagree.
Christ.
Like, I understand there's a
Oh my God.
and I could definitely see where he's coming from, and I understand it completely. And then when she brought up the point where 1 and 1, like, I mean, I think that's a good middle ground. I mean, we're here for a middle ground, so I mean, I respect exactly where he's coming from. I could disagree with him, but I'll respect exactly where he's coming from because I understand it.
It's a more extreme take to some. I get it.
I just don't think we should separate people in general, separate family members in general. Like, family is very important to me. And the idea of people being separated just entirely based off immigration status, it's crazy. And you guys are out here debating whether or not, like, with a smile?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so here's
About,
the thing.
Let her
do you
finish.
see these people as human beings?
Yeah,
They're
so-
humans.
Yes, Americans are humans.
I guess I don't understand how you guys can sit here and want to separate families. I get your side, whatever. But I don't understand how you can sit here and just be pro separating families.
Yeah,
That's
so
just me.
Not that we want it to happen. You're just taking accountability all the way from the parents that should be going through the legal processes. And actually, if we're giving them the option to either get deported with their family or stay here, they're actually separating the families within themselves, actually, because they have the final decision.
Well, you say we, but he disagrees with you. If we have to sit through all of this, like Nick Fuente.
By the way, like, this is a really hard conversation to have because it gets to, like, the core issue of this is whether or not we should just be doing mass deportations on the ground that somebody is illegally here, right? Because chances are people who are here with a family that are set up, that are established in the United States, probably have jobs, right? Probably have some sort of like temporary work permission or whatever. Chances are, if that is the case, you're selecting for like model immigrants, right? So if this is the case, then you have to have that core conversation before having this conversation. Because if I just grant that removals of illegal immigrants just on the grounds that they're illegal immigrants is just, then this is a bullet that you just naturally have to bite because this is a natural extension of doing that, right? So having this conversation downstream of this thing that's already, you know, like that hasn't really been litigated, or at least hasn't been satisfyingly litigated by this video. This is just a really hard conversation to have that are super in this format. It's just not very conducive to this because most of the answers that I'd be able to give to this topic is just like, oh, well, we shouldn't be deporting these people like this. This is bad procedure. It's not good for the country. But that doesn't really meaningfully comment on the family separation policy in and of itself.
As griper incel bullshit talking about anchor babies. Okay, this is about white supremacy. He's proving it right now. That's pure and simple. Excuse me. I mean, I think ultimately we're missing out something. We're missing out on what it fundamentally means to be human beings. And there is a premise. The premise are that these people are not human beings. They're being dehumanized. And so it doesn't matter what happens to them. We can throw them in detention camps. We can kick them out. Because fundamentally, the rhetoric that is coming from DHS, the rhetoric that is coming from the White House is about the great replacement theory. And these are your people. You are on board with this. I can see by your message that you're about it. Yeah, okay. See, this is white supremacy. The rhetoric that has been coming from the president, from Stephen Miller, from DHS on the official websites. They're
true.
Actively promoting white supremacist tropes. Okay.
That's
It's
true.
not funny.
It is.
So I want to go back to the
that's
question
true.
about-
It's soy. I'm sorry. It is soy. This dude is super soy. That is true, though. Stephen Miller is a white nationalist. Donald Trump has been trying to appoint white nationalists to high up positions within his cabinet. He's explicitly been retweeting and reposting all of these white nationalist talking points. White nationalist talking points are very common amongst the right. And the reason that the blue suit dude is laughing is because he's too stupid to know that he's been conned out by these white nationalists, or because he is a white nationalist and he is the one doing the dog whistle. But like, yeah, this is it's soy, but it's super true, unfortunately.
family separation. The reason that I did not step forward is because I think that there's actually a much better way of going about what to do with the families that are going to be affected if somebody is found to be undocumented. And what's actually happening with family separation right now is that either, yes, the parent is being removed, whether they're being put in ICE detention or they are being actively deported. That the children of these people are then either left because they are considered U.S. citizens, or they are also now being put in ICE detention centers, even if they are citizens. I think that fundamentally creates a lot of chaos within the system, and it's actually been proven because we have, for instance, a reporter out of the Washington Post who has been documented, or who has been documenting the process of what a person goes through, whether it's an adult or a child, in these ICE detention centers, in order to not have such a chaotic system which overrides everything. I think that the best way to deal with with the children of migrants if that child is then also a migrant. I think that you can do it in such a way where you go through a documentation process for everybody, and that way they are allowed citizenship if that is what the court decides. Other than that, separating families has already proven to be extremely chaotic, extremely traumatic for everybody involved, both the parents and the children. And I don't think you actually have to go through that. I think that there are much better ways of dealing with this, which includes, again, a better and easier pathway to citizenship.
And regardless of whatever the political party is, because you're right, it did happen under Obama. But I want to tell you something that is really distinct. I actually got to work with DHS when the regime changed to Biden. And again,
wait, hold on, let me think. I'm trying to schedule something. What am I doing this weekend? Fuck, I really feel like I'm doing something this weekend. All right, wait, hold on. I'm just going to let this go.
For the Biden administration as well. And what we were asked to do by the same staff who worked under Trump, who described the horrible conditions for these children, suffering children. We were asked to bring in clowns, musicians, something that, and I agree, I think the whole thing is deplorable, but the experience that these children got to have under the next regime was dramatically different. And if you can co-sign the behavior of mistreating children like that, I don't know what to say about it.
Kids in juvie are treated pretty poorly too. And who put the kids in cages in the first place? Just curious, do you know?
That's happened under every
Who put them in there in the first place?
And it was bad for them too.
I agree.
Obama. I remember hearing something a while ago that immigration will be what makes Germany the next big superpower, as it's fairly easy to immigrate there, and a lot of return to their countries speaking German. Wait, hold on. It's fairly easy to immigrate there, and a lot of return to their countries speaking German. I'm a little confused what you mean by that last point, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, immigration is just super successful. The United States doesn't know what it has in terms of like having an immigrant population who can come here easily and be able to assimilate into culture, you know, like the United States, because of how welcoming the United States culture is supposed to be to immigrants, right? Like one of the nicest things about American culture is like the grand melting pot. So a lot of the fucking American right now just doesn't know what it has in terms of like productivity, potential economic productivity, in terms of allowing more immigration. But
it was Obama who did it first.
And
of all.
we
But
were
second of all,
against
like
that
I said, the kids in juvie are treated just as poorly. It's irrelevant.
But you think that
the entire thing is just an emotional,
we can
long
fix
sentence.
all
Yes.
we can fix all the systems
Yes,
that
kids
involve
being
children.
mistreated is emotional.
Yes, you can't.
And if you don't think so, you are a psychopath.
ICE detention conditions are inhumane.
Yeah, there's been really good reporting on the ICE detention centers and the process that people have to.
Yeah, this is if the Republicans don't agree with this, I just can't believe that. The ICE, like, there's a reason why they were refusing congressional oversight to a lot of these ICE detention facilities. It's because there were people would be fucking rioting. These ICE detention facilities are fucking insane. You can look at the details from Whipple. You can look at the details from. That depends on how, if you are keen to count it, but I mean, look at fucking CCOT. You know.
Go through the inhumane conditions in these detention centers is really, really difficult to stomach, quite honestly. Every administration has honestly failed when it comes to not just deporting, but also when it comes to the detention centers. I think what's specific right now is that we have an administration that is trying to fast track everything and opening up new detention centers, and there's no oversight, right? They're not letting congressional members, for instance, who have a legal duty to come and oversee what is actually happening at the detention centers. I think one of the biggest setbacks was Alligator Alcatraz, right? Just even that name, it
really
just goes to show the intention.
I will say though, Alligator Alcatraz, the biggest problem with that, there was like genuinely claims of mistreatment from Alligator Alcatraz, but like most of the bad parts about Alligator Alcatraz was just the rhetoric surrounding it. If you want to look at like really bad examples of mistreatment to people, Alligator Alcatraz was bad, but like the conditions in Whipple, I remember being detailed as worse. Obviously, CCOT is something that is fucking insane. The idea that we were sending people to CCOT for immigration detention is like it's one of the worst things, I think, at least that Trump has done. Maybe one of the worst things of like modern history. I'd have to think about it. Yeah, fucking abysmal.
Detention is not to have people go through their proper due process. It's literally shoving people into a small room with 2 toilets if they're lucky. Hopefully there's plumbing. Hopefully there's
Sorry, I had to cut it out because of the character limit. I mean, a lot of immigrants return to their countries of origin, German. Oh, okay. So they're passing on the German culture to their home countries. That's fire.
AC and electricity in order to make sure that they're not dying of heat exhaustion, for instance. There's just been so much good reporting on what's happening inside of there that I don't think you could honestly say that the conditions are safe.
It's so much worse than that, actually. I have been part of organizing efforts to organize national coalitions to stop the camps. So if you go to stopthecamps.com, you can see what's happening. According to whistleblowers, maggots in the food, people have being forced to live in their own feces, women being denied sanitary products, so they've been given diapers. These diapers pile
People
up.
being denied their medication is a huge thing too. Like when I'm reading through these court cases, through a lot of these final orders, Jesus Christ, the amount of times I hear the story of somebody who is like either non-removable or has some sort of TPS being detained by ICE and put in, wildly overcrowded cages that need some sort of medication that isn't being given it. The amount of times I've heard this story is like fucking disgusting, considering that we are the most powerful country in the world. We can't even provide people who we detain their own medicine, bro.
They've been denied, like as you said, denied access to lawyers, and they're actually put in places that are like Alligator Alcatraz, so remote that they cannot get their constitutionally guaranteed right to due process. It's also a cruel and unusual punishment, which is also a
no. What do you mean? So remote that they can't get? I mean, like where Alligator Alcatraz is, there's absolutely the remoteness of that location isn't stopping them from getting due process. I mean, like you could maybe make that argument for Seacott, but like I know he's not, so I don't know what that really means.
Violation of the 8th Amendment. Yes. So we're violating the 4th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, the 6th Amendment, the 8th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment if they are refusing to work and they're being punished for it, because the 13th Amendment essentially doesn't allow slavery. So
yeah, I obviously agree. I had a friend who they took and they weren't feeding him for a week on time.
It's proven that these institutions, the top 2 companies that are getting these detention center contracts are massively failing, and they're hiking up the prices, right? They have a per bed rate, and that money is not going towards the care of these human beings. You can't just throw money and just put up a warehouse and hope for the best. You actually have to go through the legal process of making sure that that is a safe environment. Whether you think that person is a criminal or not is irrelevant. It's still a person.
But I think that's the whole point, is that CoreCivic and the Geo Group are massive Trump donors, and this is what we get, because it is a profit motive. That's why they're spinning up warehouses, they're turning over bases. And the point is, they don't have the violent criminals. So just like the school to prison pipeline, just like our broken criminal justice system, they are now having to inflate the numbers and go after people who are working in the fields, people who are working in restaurants. They have to do that to fill these quotas and to fill these beds. But underlying it all is the rankest corporate greed. And if you can actually listen to some of the investor calls, it's disgusting.
Bro.
And these are human rights violations. And I do think that eventually these people are going to all face prosecution, like the Nuremberg trials.
I was going to say I came up because being in jail no matter what is inhumane on some level. It's not supposed to be rewarding. It's supposed to be punishing. It's supposed to be a time of reflection. It's also
oh my God. No, ICE detention is not supposed to be a punishment. ICE detention is supposed to be a waiting place to where you sit there and you wait for your deportation. It's not supposed to be a fucking prison. These people aren't violent criminals. These people aren't people who need to be sent to prison. These people are, the ICE facilities are supposed to be holding cells.
Place of holding. It's not supposed to be a Hilton. It's not supposed to be a Marriott. It is a cell. It is a containment. So I don't think it's supposed to. I think anybody who is put in a cell or cage of any kind is not necessarily being treated like the majority of humans are treated. I'm not in a cage right now, for example, to make it obvious.
So you don't think they deserve basic?
It's referencing them, bringing them to places outside of jurisdiction of where they were originally were to circumvent due process. There's some stuff about habeas where they like kept moving them around jurisdictions, and lawyers need to file for habeas in the location where their client is being held. But I wouldn't say that that's not due to the remoteness. That's due to the dishonesty and the moving around of these people. So that's a separate thing. I don't know if that's what he was referencing. I mean, that's true, but I just don't know if that's what he was referencing.
Basic human necessities and rights.
I never said they don't deserve basic human necessities. What I said is, if you are being contained in any way in that manner.
I know it's somewhat a joke, but what are your thoughts on politicians discussing Canada joining the EU? At this point, it'd be better than them joining us. But I don't have a super strong opinion on it. I just don't know much. Don't know much about the culture of the EU or Canada. I'm a US brain.
Manner, you're of course going to be able to define it as inhumane. But
so we're talking about maggots in the food. We're talking about sleeping in their feces, sleeping in their own vomit.
If you're shitting yourself, that's your fault.
No, they have no choice. They don't have access to.
Oh my God, this dude is like fucking comically evil. Jesus Christ, bro. Like, it should be revealing to these people that the pro-ICE side. Okay, so on the anti-ICE side, you have a socialist dude who's pretty stupid, quiet, a quiet person that didn't really talk that much, and 2 very intelligent people, right? That's the anti-ICE side. On the pro-ICE side, you have a white nationalist, some dude who's pretty respectable, and then 2 retards. Like, no, is this really what we're doing, bro? Is this the strongest pro-ICE that Jubilee can find? oh my God, we've got like fucking Hitler incarnate, a standard conservative, and then two people who probably didn't dress themselves this morning. It's like, oh my God.
The toilets.
Yes,
you dingus.
So wait, you're saying yes, ICE detention centers are inhumane, but you're saying that's a good thing.
I never said it's a good. it's not a good or bad thing.
But
It's
you
not
think they're
bad.
getting what they deserved?
Yeah.
I never said they're getting what they deserve. I said they're being contained, and they're being contained in the manner that we're able to afford to do so.
Do you think that
Dude, I was thinking about scheduling a debate with some of the people on this thing. I don't even want to talk to this blue suit dude because these people are getting the clips that they need, bro. Like, this dude is fucking evil. Like, me having a conversation with this dude would do nothing. Oh, oops.
So wait, you're saying yes, ICE detention centers are inhumane, but you're saying that's a good thing.
I never said it's a good. it's not a good or bad thing.
But
It's
you
not
think they're
bad.
getting what they deserved?
Yeah.
I never said they're getting what they deserve. I said they're being contained, and they're being contained in the manner that we're able to afford to do so.
Do you think that it is okay in America for these people to be living in those conditions?
To feed someone maggots and let them shit themselves.
It's very obvious that no, the majority of people should not be fed maggots, but they're not being fed maggots. The majority
they
of
are.
people,
According to what? Source, dude, trust me?
no, according to the data, we would have a lot
What
more
data?
people dead in these
What
detentions.
data?
We'd have
People
a lot
are
more-
dying.
People
yes,
are dying.
Of course, people die in prison as well. We would have a
Prison, not jail.
People die in
Well, if they were being fed maggots, people would be dying. People are dying. Well, they're not being fed maggots anyway. Oh, well, we have a lot of reports that people are being fed maggots. Well, it's not happening. Oh my God.
jail, sweetheart.
Are you a misogynist?
If you
You
want to
keep
call me
calling
that,
the women
I don't
sweetheart.
care.
Is he a sweetheart?
He might be. I don't know. This is
Well,
LA.
Jesus Christ.
Can I just say why I came up here?
rude.
That was the main thing where she said that it's been going on through each presidency. If we look back at Obama and Biden,
Like, this dude is clearly just like doing the Fuentes grift. It's like embarrassing.
it was the same thing where they're lacking
Also, is this girl ever going to come up? I thought this was opening statement part. These people are arguing and she's just standing in the background.
medical care. It's been happening from each presidency. It's about 5 to 10 deaths in these detention camps each year. And then for Trump's first year, it's actually exceeded that at 30.
Yes.
So that's why I kind of agree, because they haven't been receiving medical care. But you also have to see the influx of the illegals that came across is also contributing, because they have to build these places as quick as possible to deport as many people as possible, because we had such an influx.
That what you're describing did not happen to the same degree. The treatment did not happen. And again, I agree with you. The treatment under Biden and Obama, I have no defense for it. I'm not going to sit there and defend it. I fought it through every single administration. And I think it's deplorable. And I also have enough, having worked with DHS on this, to know that the treatment is not the same. And if you look at the contracts going to core, civic, and jail group, and the way that they're managing this, mismanaging it, it's not the same. So I reject your...
And
This is how fascism is platformed normally. Well, yeah, kind of. The problem with this isn't necessarily that they're platforming him. The problem is that they're platforming him with normal people, right? Like, this dude and this dude are clearly not on the same side, but the fact that they're lumping in this fucking like Giga Hitler fucking like evil like piece of human shit with like this standard conservative dude, and like, oh, we're fighting on the same side. It's like crazy. Like, I agree that this is irresponsible platforming, but not because he's here, because he's being looped in with normal people. That's like, it's evil. This dude is like very clearly doing like the weird fashy Fuentes Groyper grift. But they're like lumping him in with normal conservatives. That can't be the case.
And even that, just to kind of back that up, we've talked financially as well. So the Trump administration has drastically inflated the budget to fund all of this, right? Not just to open the detention centers, but to actually staff them properly, to make sure that they are feeding people properly. But the reality is that they're not doing that. So even though Obama also had a really, really horrible record, so did Biden. If we are being morally consistent and admitting that, I think you guys also have to admit that if they are inflating the budget to ensure that this money is actually going to fund these centers, then why aren't they? Because they could easily fix it, right? Like, the budget is massive at this point. Your side is not being morally consistent about this. Even if you think that they are criminals, then you also have to then advocate for making sure that these detention centers are humane. And I'm not seeing that from your side. So I'm glad that you're admitting that that is your position. You're the first person that I've heard from your side to admit it.
But moral consistency has nothing to do with funding. So now there's more funding. They have less than a year to do it. We had an influx of the highest of all time since the U.S. was created. The most illegals came across the border in the past 4 years out of any time in U.S. history. Sometimes you're not going to staff correctly. They're going to make buildings maybe not up to permit codes. Things are going to happen. And I'm not saying that should happen. I wish it didn't
because of profit margins. Okay.
So are you guys for independent audits? And government audits? Yeah.
I think there should be
detention centers. Yeah, it'd be great if they could, call their lawyer. There's no pathway.
I'm asking audits on the financials.
I think there should be
Everything,
audits
sure.
across the board. I also think that you should allow...
Yes. Why is Trump denying the fucking Congress people from coming and overseeing these facilities?
allow congressional members to make their own audits, right? There should be audits across the board, whether they're independent, statewide. There should be. The problem is that there aren't. They're not allowing Congress members to go and do their legal duty. And there's so much evidence for this. So I understand that you disagree, but the facts are the facts.
Oh, she finally rejoins.
So the reason I didn't step
Now they're
forward, I
based.
just really simply think that if you came into this country illegally, America does not owe you anything. Yes, ideally they would have humane conditions, but at the end of the day, Trump gave them the option to self-deport, even $1,000 check if you go home now. But they said, you can still have a chance to come back. If you self-deport now, we'll even give you over $1,000, and you can figure it out, and you might have a chance to come back. If you decide to stay in this country, knowing that there's a mass deportation going on, and then they had to go out and deport you, you can't then be like, oh, these aren't humane conditions. You know, we don't owe you anything. We don't owe these immigrants anything. So I mean.
Legally you do. Morally you do. Like, if we were to ask this person, I hope somebody does, they're not going to hypothetical rail this person. If we were to put 100 illegal immigrants who are pending removal into a room with nothing, no food, no toilets, no anything, would this person call that inhumane? Because very clearly and obviously is. But like, I thought we didn't owe them anything, right? Like this thought pattern. I'm sorry. So my bad. When I said that the normalization of the fasci stuff or whatever, I said that, you know, this person was lumped in with normal people. These two people are the good ones. These two people should be shunned from life, and they should never be platformed on anything without being called like fucking Nazis, because these people are fucking insane. Like the idea that you just see somebody and they're a different skin tone than me, so like they don't deserve moral consideration, or they're from a different country and they don't deserve moral consideration. Like it transcends, you know, the black white paradigm, because we have one common enemy. Us right-wing populists, we have one common enemy, and it's the Mexicans and it's the Jews.
You know, you could stack. If you decide to stay in this country knowing that there's a mass deportation going on, and then they had to go out and deport you, you can't then be like, oh, these aren't humane conditions. You know, we don't owe you anything. We don't owe these immigrants anything. So I think that, look, food and water, sure, but if you're talking
unfortunately, like, this dude's looks into be like, yeah, you're on my side, so I can't really argue with you that aggressive.
all these different medications that people need, why should the taxpayers have to pay for that? I think taxpayer dollars should be focused on American citizens, not people that came to this country illegally. So you can cry about the conditions all you want, but at the end of the day, it's your fault that you're in those conditions.
Jesus Christ.
What we're asking for is basic human rights, and medication is a basic human right.
I don't agree with that.
People will die if they don't get their medication. Do you know?
To American citizens. American citizens have died because they couldn't afford medication.
Just because they came to this country and they didn't go through the documentation process that you prefer, that they should die because of it?
No, I'm saying that there's American citizens that have died because they could not afford medication. So why do you think you're entitled to get medication for free because you're an illegal?
Because the Constitution says so.
Where does it say you get medication for free?
The Constitution says you have the civil rights.
First off, I agree with you. Everyone has a right to access to healthcare. I completely agree with that point. But you said, oh, we don't have the money.
Also, I guarantee you that this person's not in favor of like expanding access to Medicare or Medicaid. Promise you 100%.
Money that you're talking about isn't being spent on Medicare. This administration just rolled back all of the healthcare subsidies. They're closing hospitals. Okay. And yes, if we detain something, we are obligated to meet the minimum requirements for human rights. We are. And guess where a lot of that money's going? Do you think that if we just took a little bit of that $100 million that Kristi Noem used to make propaganda videos for herself and just fed people food, like, it's a ridiculous argument you're making.
I think food and water is the basic necessity. Anything above that is
but the food has maggots and they're not being given
every single food has maggots. I think that was wrong, or they should have been more on top of that. I'm not going to argue that was acceptable. I'm just saying I think food and water. No, I'm just saying food and water.
She literally did argue that.
I think that everything else is a privilege after food and water.
Oh, not you.
Jesus Christ. You deserve food and water. You don't deserve your medication. Holy fuck.